think she didn't hear the applause, so maybe we can...
Ricky took me to a concert next door.
She's seen it many times.
It was so amazing.
So I don't think I'm needed, but I could stand here for ceremonial purposes. Would someone would you want to say something before we start, or should we just jump into questions?
I would like to know if anybody wants to share something with me or ask any specific questions.
Yes. Could you say it really loudly, please?
I wondered if any of the men would mention anything about their relationships to Russians during their military experience. But it didn't come up in the movie. But when they were talking with you, was that a part of their own memory of serving in the army in the DDR?
Yes. Definitely it was. It's a huge part of their memory, and there is a very tight friendship with Russia today. Even though they see themselves as socialists, and Russian politics has gone in a totally another direction. But there is a very close friendship, and I think also my experience is just that Russia really is holding this friendship, because it's about Russian interests in Europe and other countries. And I decided not to show it in the film, because I think it's another story. But you're right. You're definitely right.
Thank you.
Could you use the microphone? Yes. We can't hear.
Please use the microphone.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Okay. I'm sorry.
And there's a microphone going around for those of you who have questions. Okay, very good. Yes, please go.
Thank you very much for that very interesting film. Do you have any idea, back around in the 1990s, what percentage of the people in the GDR would have wanted to keep it like it was?
Well, I can only guess. We talked about this earlier today with students. I think in 1990 there was a big want for change, definitely, but probably not the way that the change came. Like the people from the GDR really turned out to be losers. A lot of them lost their jobs. They had really to struggle to keep it going in the reunited Germany, and it was not, at least at their point of view, it was not really a reunification, but it was more like West Germany took over the whole Germany. So I think that because of that and other reasons, probably it's more today that would like to keep things the way they were than at that time.
I think there's a question right there, yes.
You mentioned the connection with Russia. Did a lot of the Army speak Russian?
Yes, they do, especially the higher ranked officers. They have almost everybody studied in Russian from the higher ranked officers. And it's for them. It was a natural connection. Yes.
And the general population in East Germany?
Well, my experience is that no, if you never practiced it, it's a very difficult language. It's quite different from German. So if everybody learned it, but if you don't practice it, then you don't speak it.
Is there another question? If not, down here. Very good. While you're getting the microphone, I'll ask one quickly, and that is maybe an observation. I found myself, especially during the first viewing, wishing you had been tougher on some of the subjects, especially the gentleman, the guy, the former wall guard,
yes,
who apparently committed murder. I understand now that you might have caused him to shut down if you had been any more aggressive. But nevertheless, I did feel this, for what it's worth.
Yes, it was a choice that I made and you're right about that. I wanted them to speak out and not to take them through a confrontation through me. And when you see in the film, when you see the other part, it's also actually also a natural part of story. When this conference takes part, and suddenly you hear another voice, and I decided it was a decision that I took because I really wanted to take this point of view and and it was a great challenge, of course, for me to tell this story or this film from their point of view. But that's how I decided to do it.
Great.
But of course, you can have this feeling, yes.
But if you had acted on my feelings, you wouldn't have gotten the film. There's a question here.
Yes, I was curious about the woman doctor who had been a doctor in the GDR. Perhaps I missed it, but I wondered what happened to her after reunification, whether she was able to work as a doctor afterward.
Yes, she did. She worked until she went on pension.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Well,
Sorry. Looks like we have two questions. It's okay. We'll get to both of you. Why don't we start with this gentleman here?
yeah.
Yes. Take the microphone, please.
I was looking at because the repetition, let's say, of their body memories, of their rituals, of their ceremonies. For me, I'm a film director, and I thought that scene was very gripping because it was almost at the brink between nostalgia and insanity, and so that the absent rifle or the absent gun was actually more present and more threatening even in that absence. I used to go to the Gorky Theater in East Berlin.
Yes,
I used to cross a lot. I was the first Filipino to cross.
Okay.
And I had to cross all the time from west to east. And I used to experience, being... in fact, I was being suspected of being a spy because I was there often. And I was really getting more and more harassed each time. And the attitude of their bodies on you, the way they did, the way they searched you, the way it was not the way they showed in that propaganda film, where they go to the train and then they inspect. No, it wasn't like that at all. We had to get down from the train.
When you went to East Berlin.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And so when I was looking at that and that ritual, it was for me who had experienced, being like harassed by the soldiers, on the cross.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Seemed to me really, really very, very threatening. And yet, the quality that you presented it, and I see that you are, as a director, you are going into that ambivalence of attitude, towards it, because you don't want to establish a prag meme or field of attitude around it. I think is very effective, because then it shows even more dangerously, that violence, even in that absence of those weapons going through a ritual. However, I want to know, on their side, is it still just nostalgia, or is it actually still an inner desire to carry the absent weapon?
Well, to be honest, I think it's an actual desire, especially for the protagonists that you see in the film. It's a huge part of their identity, and if you consider that, that they kind of lost their honor and their identity, that's makes it probably even more desirable. Yeah.
So I think there's a question over here.
Yes, thank you for this very interesting movie. I'm impressed with this movie. I'm coming from Poland. I'm a visiting scholar here, and it's not very comfortable to be in between German and Russian studies here as a Polish. But I understand this movie because I grew up in Poland. I was born in 1973, so I was 16 when the Berlin Wall has fallen down. And I a little bit remember those times. I have a question to you. You've seen these people that were fired after 1990.
Yes.
And there was the secret police files were open and saved, let's say, right away. We in Poland have burned a lot of files, and we have not done lustration for the 20 years or something. And actually last year, 25 years after, there is some attempt to deprive the people that used to work even for one day for communistic regime of their pensions, which to me is very unfair. If somebody has worked for 1 year or trained for one day in the secret police and then worked for 30 years for the Free State. But do you think that this lustration and firing of all the people of the former regime in Germany was effective way of building this German state, united German state, and it was fair to all these people that were there in your movie?
What was the last question?
My question is, was it fair to all these people to fire them right away and to deprive them of work and possibility of performing any functions in the state? I could see from the movie that they were living in the very small flats. They were rather poor in the times when you made the movie 20 years later.
Yes. Well, I think it's understandable that they were fired, because out of the victim's point of view, you didn't want any victims to be in a situation that they would meet the same authorities when they went to the police or had to interfere with the police or whatever. So I think it's very understandable, but probably it would have been better when it comes to integration if they have been a more what do you call that? That you have looked more deeper into what have they actually been working with, what did they do, and it has come to a change in Germany. Like when I was doing the research, I was also talking to officers from the West German army, and one of them, a historian from the military museum in Dresden, told me that at that time he was, he also grew up with the thinking that they are my enemies, and he couldn't imagine that anybody could anticipate in the West German army. But looking back today, he said it would have been better if they would have looked more diverse, is that the right word, on whether firing people or not, or maybe giving them a second chance.
Thank you.
Yes. Is there a way for people to see this film around the country?
No, not here.
Not here?
No. It will come out on DVD in December.
Oh, it will? And people could buy it or rent it in this
country?
Well,
maybe it comes out on Amazon Video. I don't know. Yeah. I hope so.
Okay, I hope so too.
It would make it easier for an international audience. But definitely you could order a DVD, yes.
Oh, great. Thank you.
This is the U.S. premiere.
Yes.
In the movie, there was only one person that was under 50. What about the younger generations in Germany, the people that are in their 20s and the 30s? Are they involved in this at all?
Not very much. There are some younger people involved, and it's mostly the children of the protagonists. But maybe not the next generation, but the generation after that, I think it will be forgotten, definitely.
but I saw in the parade, in the just related to that, in the what do you call it, flanks, or the ones on the side, like clapping for the people, but also with their berets. I saw a little child being held by a maybe a father or a grandfather, and then I saw that young person in the parade who was included, but who was in a sailor suit. And when I'm just linking to that, do you think that memory will stay because you have these signs that you're putting in, right? So there's signals. Are they signals of something?
What do you mean, the signals?
Are they signals of something dangerous, for instance? Is there a sense? Because I sensed, for me, it was a sense of danger. It was very dangerous for me to see, the sailor and the little child, because they were young. They were about
yes. Well, you have to know that this parade took place in a park with a Russian memorial, and it's a graveyard of Russian soldiers that were killed in World War II. And the day in Germany, they call it the Day of Freedom, and in Russia they call it the Victoria Day. And this is a huge holiday in Russia, and Russia lost 20 million people in the Second World War, and it's something that is deeply inside in the Russian DNA, in Russian history, and in each Russian family. So when you go to that park, there will be a lot of Russians. So it's a Russian tradition to celebrate that day, and it's not a coincidence that they choose to go there, because that's where their friends are, and that's where they can be sure that they will have an applause, But it might very well have been Russian families with children being there. So I think they have another approach to this than the German protagonists. They come there for a little bit of a different reason that the German protagonist does.
No, but they were part of the parade.
Yeah, I think you can have a one-on-one after this.
Yeah.
Is there any other question or remark? It's getting a little bit late. The last one? Yes.
This movie, I have a lot to think about. Could you tell us a little more about this young man, the artist, who was a teenager? And was that, for example, the gallery that I assume was an exhibit? Was it a fringe gallery or a mainstream gallery?
Where he has an exhibition?
Yes.
It was at a huge public TV station in the center of Berlin, actually. Well, the artist, he is in this society because he wanted when he was 16 when the wall fell, and as he says in the film, he never really understand how it could happen that everything that he believed in and learned to believe in and his parents believed in from one day to another suddenly wasn't true anymore. So he went into this society to make the experience himself about being with the veterans and doing the things that they do, all the rituals that they do. And I choose to bring him into the film because I think he is reflecting the whole topic in an artistic way. So that's another aspect of reflecting.
I don't think I mentioned in the introduction that Signe is interested now in doing research in the area of this far-right party in Germany called the Alternative for Germany. So I'm hoping that if that becomes a film, that we can welcome her back to the Browning Cinema at that time and have another screening. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.